Hello, and thank you for checking out this section on learning Adobe Photoshop. Now, throughout this section and throughout the rest of the class, I'm going to be using the Adobe Creative Cloud 2019 suite. So if you haven't signed up already, you'll need to go to adobe.com and then go to the Adobe Creative Cloud section and either sign up for a free trial or choose a plan that best suits you. Once you do that, you'll be able to install the software. And inside of that software, you will have the Adobe Creative Cloud application. This application has all sorts of features, but mainly it's the place where you can go ahead and install new software, update software, or launch the software straight from this application. As you can see here, I've already updated to Photoshop S.C 2019, so it's showing me an open button, whereas Illustrator CC hasn't been updated. So I would go ahead and update that before proceeding. When you're ready, you can just go ahead and click on the open button here, and that will launch Adobe Photoshop for you. Now, I already had it open, so it went straight to the welcome screen. You might actually see a loading screen before you get here. But typically, when you open up Photoshop and any of the Creative Cloud applications, you'll be presented with a welcome screen. And it might give you some information about Adobe products or the software you're using. And typically, it gives you a place to create a new document, open a document, or might even show you some recent files that you've been working on. So whenever you're ready, just go ahead and click on the Create New button. And this will bring up the new document window. Here you can see we can pick some recent items or saved items. We can also pick some presets under photo, print, art and illustration, web, mobile, film and video. And you can make changes on the right-hand side to the name, the width and height, resolution, color mode, background contents, and some other options. So just go ahead and pick the default Photoshop size and then click the Create button. This will take you into the main workspace of Photoshop. And though this workspace is different than Illustrator or XD or any of the other softwares, they all generally work the same way. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to kind of get around these workspaces, how they work, and then at the end I'll kind of reorganize my panels for my workspace, and you can copy that if it makes it easier for you to follow along, or you can create your own workspace and set it up the way that you'd like. If you've already been using Photoshop and you've changed your workspace around and you want to get it back to its default, the best thing to do is go up to the top and click on Window, then go to Workspace and click on Reset Essentials. So you'll see that I'm using the Essentials default workspace. I've actually created my own before called Jeremy. And then we have some other workspaces like 3D, graphic and web, motion, painting, and photography. So if you were mainly working in photography, you could choose this workspace, and it's going to give you panels and tools related more to photography. Whereas if you chose graphic and web, you'll get different panels and tools that are specific to that. But we're just going to use the Essentials default workspace. And if you'd like to reset it, just go down and click on the Reset Essentials button. So if you had anything moved around and you click on that, it'll bring you back to this workspace. Now, because I haven't changed anything, you didn't see much of a change. But the workspace is made up into different sections, and this is pretty similar across all Adobe Creative Cloud applications. At the top, we have our menu bar and our options bar for making different types of options and adjustments. On the left-hand side is a toolbar of all the different tools. In the center is our main work area where you will be doing all of the work. And on the right-hand side, we have different panels that you can adjust, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Now, over on the toolbar side, you can see the tools have these little arrows beneath the actual tool itself. If you click and hold that down, then you can pull up more tools within that icon. So anytime you see this single arrow in the bottom corner, you can click, hold down, and it'll show you more tools underneath that icon. Another great thing about the tools bar is if you don't know how a tool works, you can actually hover over and it'll show you a demonstration of that tool to kind of remind you what that tool is actually doing. On the right hand side, we have our panels, and these windows can be resized. If you ever see a double arrow and you click and drag, you can actually resize the window. You can also do this vertically, so if you need more room, you can move these panels up or down. These panels have different groups, and in those groups there are tabs. So in this bottom group we have layers, channels, and paths. And if you click on those, you can see the different options that are given. Now at any time you can click and drag this tab, and as you do, it'll pull it out of that panel, and then you can either set it out here in your workspace, or you can put it with another group. So say I want it up here in this panel, I can let go, and now Paths is up here with properties and adjustments. Again, if I want to move that back down, I just click and drag. I can drop it into that group, and now they're together. If you need to reorganize any of these tabs, you can just click and drag and then set it down, and it will reorganize those for you. So I'll go ahead and put that back. You'll also see another icon that has a couple lines, and this gives you other options within the panel. So if I click on this, you can see that we have different options relating to the tab that we have selected, which is the Path tab. So if I select on Layers, and then I click that options, now we have different options pertaining to layers. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go ahead and reset this one more time. So we're back to the basic setup here. And I'm going to reorganize this a little bit better of how I like to work. Now you can follow along with me. It'll probably make it easier as we go through this course for you to have the same kind of setup. Or if you'd like to create your own setup, you can do that also. And as you begin working, I recommend that you find the things that work best for you and create your own workspace. So for instance, the libraries panel is important later on as you begin building your library, but right now we don't need it. So I can go ahead and right click on that and hit close, and it'll let me close that out. Now that was the only tab in that panel block, so when I removed it, it actually resized the window for me and gave me a little more room to work with. So if we go down the line, you can see this icon right here is your history icon, and if you click on the double arrows, it'll open up the history for you, and as you begin working, you can see that history laid out, which is nice to have, but we don't need to see all of it right now, so we can click on the double arrows again and just see that icon there. Then we have a color tab, which we'll use pretty often, and we also have a swatches tab, which we'll also use, so we'll leave those alone. And then we have our properties. This gives us information about the document and different properties, which is good. I would like to keep that there. And then there's an adjustments tab. Now this is to quickly add in adjustments, which is a really neat feature, but I usually don't use this too often. So I'm just going to click on that and close that one out also. At the bottom, we have our layers, which is one of the main things we will be using inside of Photoshop. So we'll keep that activated. We have our channels. So this is really good whenever we're doing any type of color correction or using masks and different types of effects. We'll leave that there for now. And at the end is pass. Now later on we'll get into pass, but right now we're not going to use this. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And I just like to tidy this up a little bit so it's a little less things to look at and worry about, and only pull in the things that I need. Now there's more panels than this. So if you go back up to the top and you click on window, you can see all of the different panels. Some of these you'll use often, and some of them you won't use that much. So for instance, the 3D will only be useful when you're working with 3D inside of Photoshop, not something we'll use too often. Now I usually use the brushes and the brush settings whenever we begin working with brushes, and I use them pretty often. So I'll click on that, and when I do, it pulls the brush settings and the brushes together as a group and lays them out into the icon panel here. Now it has the double arrows, so if I go ahead and click those, it hides it. But if I click on that icon again, it will pull that out for me. And that's a nice little area to have those, because I can call them quickly when I want to adjust my brush, but I don't need them open all the time like I might want my layers or my color or properties open all the time. Character and character styles is also something that you might use often if you're using a lot of text. So we can put those in there. You can see the character and the paragraph tabs have been added. So we'll click on those to hide those. So now we have our history, our brushes, and our characters. If you're working with photos and you start dealing with levels and making a lot of photographic adjustments, you'll want the histogram opened up. Now, I don't like it here because I like to see it a little bigger. So this is one where I can actually click and drag this group of both of these, and I can go ahead and put them with the properties. So now we have our properties, our navigator, and our histogram. I don't care too much about the navigator, so I'm actually going to close that and just have properties and then the histogram. And as you begin editing photos, you'll see that popping up here. So that's a good little piece of information to have. I'll also add in an info. So this gives me individual info about positions and coordinates. This is usually what I have open instead of the properties, so I can actually see RGB values, CMYK values, width, height, and X and Y values. I also want to move this over with the properties, so we'll drop that in, and I'll put this one first because I use it, it's a little more important to me. And then we have our properties and our histogram, so that gives us some good information about the document. And then as you can see, that's pretty much all I'm going to use at this point. Now you may want to add in some more of these as you use them or click on them to see what they do. But for right now, this is a good start. And then later on, as we begin working with different projects, we'll come in here and add them in as we need them. If at any time you ever want to save these out, you can go to Workspace and then click on New Workspace. And then you can give this a name. So I'll just go ahead and call it my name and hit save. And because I already have one, it is asking me, do I want to replace it? I'll just go ahead and click yes. And now I have this specific workspace saved out that I can always recall. So if you go back up to Window and you go to Workspace, now you can see that Jeremy, my name is highlighted, that workspace, and Essentials is no longer highlighted. So if I click on Essentials, it actually isn't going to change anything because we were working with the Essentials originally. But we can go down and we can reset Essentials. It puts us back here. Now to recall the one that we created, we can go to Window, Workspace, and I can click on Jeremy, and it will recall that workspace. Now that's a great way to lay out Photoshop or any of the Creative Cloud applications that you would like and design your workspace. And as you begin working, you'll find yourself using more panels than others, and you can move those around how you see fit. But this is a good start for us to begin working. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to show you some of the more common features used inside of Photoshop, and then we'll begin creating projects so that you'll get some hands-on training with the tools and features that you'll most likely be using throughout graphic design.